You're listening to Payments Innovation, a podcast dedicated to helping business leaders navigate today's global digital economy. Looking to learn about the latest innovations within fintech and payments? You've come to the right place. Let's get into the show.
Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Payments Innovation podcast with me, Richard Arundel from Currency Cloud. And today I've got Lucian Lauerman from OANDA. Lucian, great to have you on the show.
Hi, Richard. Nice to be here. Thanks very much.
And you're obviously an American, but now living in the leafy suburbs of the UK, in Seven Oaks in Kent.
Lockdown.
Lockdown, exactly. But apparently not. Well, we've got 3 months or 4 months, and then it's over, apparently, according to Boris.
And we can all go back to the pub.
Exactly. So listen, for those of our listeners who don't know, maybe talk a little bit about who OANDA are and what you guys are doing.
Sure. So OANDA was started around 25 years ago, and our roots really was started by two professors, Richard Olson and Michael Strum at University of Toronto, as a way to democratize foreign exchange data and bring foreign exchange data out onto the internet. It was probably in the early 2000s that we started first offering online trading. And the company really has grown as a retail foreign exchange brokerage, but has always retained those roots in data and as a data solution around the world. So the OANDA rate is really the trusted rate in foreign exchange, especially for many corporates in the US who use our data in accounting and FP&A, in their ERP platforms, et cetera, to calculate averages and exposures, et cetera. So that heritage in being a market data supplier and a trusted source of foreign exchange capability and data is core to the OANDA brand and heritage and who we are. And we've had, great corporate relationships for literally decades as a market data source.
And obviously a really well-known brand name over the other side of the Atlantic, but perhaps less so here in the UK and Europe.
Yeah. So we're fairly strong. We're very strong in North America as a brokerage firm and as a corporate services provider in FX. Also fairly strong in Asia. We're, I think, maybe the number 2 broker in Singapore. We're the largest foreign FX broker in Japan, and have had a very strong franchise in Japan for many years. We're regulated, I think, 8 jurisdictions, maybe 9 around the world. So the JFSA, MAS, the FCA, et cetera, the UK FCA. So a good global presence, but maybe punched a little below our weight in Europe, particularly the UK, because we're so FX focused and we're less of a spread betting platform or anything like that.
But
the FX
now,
part of the business has always been core,
right?
What we position from.
But they've got you here, so and maybe talk a little bit about kind of your background and where you've come from.
I originally come out of financial technology. I worked in capital markets and actually foreign exchange risk management technology for many years, and then gradually after doing a bunch of projects with banks and brokers, moved over onto what you might call the client side, and got very interested in retail foreign exchange. Spent a few years at Saxo, then moved back more onto the corporate side, and worked at Lloyd's and during kind of the e-commerce platform build out there, and developed and delivered their single dealer platform for corporates in the UK. And then went back to Saxo and ran electronic distribution there, which is an execution service primarily in foreign exchange. I moved to OANDA about 14 months ago. So OANDA was acquired by CVC, one of the, it's like 135 billion fund. We were acquired by one of their Asia growth funds in 2018. And CVC has invested quite a bit into OANDA, into the management team at OANDA. Gavin Banbury came in as CEO around the same time I did. And they're really looking to invest in growing OANDA organically and inorganically. We're in the midst of an acquisition in Poland of the second largest broker in Poland, and in rejuvenating the management team. So I came from Saxo, the head of trading came from IG, the head of product came from CMC, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a very interesting time at OANDA. There's a lot of growth in our various capabilities for clients in our various propositions. And as we did that, and we talked about this a little bit before, coming on and doing this, we're really looking to broaden our proposition to our various audiences, both corporate and retail trading, and doing that through partnerships with best of breed, right? So if you look at the equivalent on the retail trading side, we have one of the most popular platforms is TradingView. We're very strong in that platform, right? And that's driven a lot of activity. And on the corporate side, we've been talking to Currency Cloud for many years about doing something like this. And when I came in, it seemed the obvious thing to do is to widen out the services that our corporate clients have and work with somebody like a Currency Cloud to make that happen.
I mean, you're doing the job for me here. You're teeing us up nicely for, I guess, the partnership that we announced at the tail end of last year. As you said, we've been courting. We've been in a dating phase for a number of years. But I think it's interesting.
You had me at hello, Richard.
Listen, and I think it's an interesting time to do this. And I think we were talking before we came on air around your progression from and how you're looking to go to market, how you're looking to offer new services to your corporate customers. And we've started this project in North America, but let's kind of focus a little bit on OANDA FX and payments. I think you're calling it. So what's the idea there? It's, as I said, we're focused on your corporate customers out in North America. But...
Right, and on North America, because in our OANDA FX data business, our strength is really in North America. We have, as I said, very longstanding relationships with North American corporates in market data and as a foreign exchange market data source, and as a reliable partner, a trusted partner in that space. I mean, if you go onto the IRS website and look for, well, who should I use for my foreign exchange rates? It actually says OANDA, right? And we have, as I said, really long-standing deep integrations into most of the ERPs that are used by corporates. So when we looked at the services we want to provide, and we had this kind of offer from Currency Cloud to get into a partnership, it really made sense to be able to go to those same clients and say, look, we have this this capability and understanding in foreign exchange markets. We have this technology and payment rails partner. Can we expand the services we provide? And to the audience we're talking to, it's really clients that are using a bank and perhaps are not best served by their bank today.
Which is a common story in North America, right? So it's a common story across the world, but I think...
It might be a common story across the world, but particularly in North America, it's a very common story. Corporates who have maybe one or two bank providers, they're dealing with the transaction banking part of that bank, and they're not getting the service that a major multinational would get, or frankly, the capabilities and delivery capabilities.
And I guess also the user experience and being a financial technology business, and from our side of things as that kind of technology infrastructure player, I was in the US for 3 years. And I've seen some horrible examples of kind of UIs given to them by some of these banking providers if they're lucky enough to have an online platform to do any kind of FX conversions. So there's a huge market there. Just you're right in terms of the rates, because you can again, it's always interested me moving out there and seeing some of the rates that the banks are providing, and not just really small SMEs, but people doing a fair amount of trade.
Yeah. And so, as you say, there's the ability to come in with maybe a more fair service level, but also the kind of onboarding and educational aspects of the onboarding experience and the kind of user experience and the interface. And for us, that's not just the platform, the electronic platform, but it's the entire kind of funnel of attracting clients in, giving them an easy to understand onboarding experience, giving them some kind of basic tools to do some comparisons on, well, this is what you do now, this is the kind of payments you make, this is basically what you should be considering in this market, right? So it does really sit very well with this heritage of democratization through technology that OANDA has, of making information more widely available, and giving people the tools to make those decisions in the best possible way. And that's really where OANDA came from, and this service fits very well into that. And frankly, we're looking to expand even further to these clients and perhaps offer them some compelling analytics around foreign exchange data, et cetera, and so to really try to offer a wide array of services that give them as many tools as possible to make good decisions when it comes to their foreign exchange and their kind of FX overlay and exposures.
I think it's really interesting. I think one of the things that you guys have got going for you is your brand and your brand name. And there's a huge amount of equity in that brand. As I said, started 25 years ago, and you've seen kind of people trying to enter, I guess, the US market. You have kind of specialized FX providers, some of which are doing really well, and you have, I guess, the newer kind of challenger neobanks. Primarily, a lot of them are domestic focused, but the ones who are and domestic and consumer focused. But there are a few out there now starting to launch in the SME space and starting to educate the market when it comes to cross border. I think education is key that I've seen. Yeah. I guess what OANDA have is that brand equity. And you have, a book of corporate customers who all do FX, who use OANDA anyway for the data and analytics side of things. And now what you're doing is you're now just embedding a service to say, well, listen, if you want to now send your funds across, we can help.
Yeah. I mean, we have this audience that we're talking to about FX. And the audience is actually fairly wide, right? I mean, the OANDA currency calculator is one of the defaults in the market, right? So, I went on, like so many people, I had my vacation canceled last summer, and my travel insurance, I'm very, very happy. Thank you, Lloyd's. Took care of it. I have really good experience with them. But the interesting thing was when they sent through to my wife the information on making the claim for euro back to sterling, they said, please verify the rate and use the OANDA rate calculator. And my wife said, how do they know where you work? And I was like, no, like, you don't get it. Like, if you want to check the rate, people tell you to check the OANDA rate, right? For businesses, use that as the benchmark. So it's not just the corporates, it's a wider range of tax professionals, et cetera, that use our online calculator or historical rate calculator or our APIs to access that FX data. So, we are already talking to a very broad range of people who are interested in FX. And again, for us, it was how do we broaden that the range of services we offer them, and how do we do that with, how can I say this, a platform that we know that works. right? That is a reliable, kind of tested platform that works, that we know when we process the payments, that the client has good visibility into what's happening, and et cetera, that we're able to work with someone where we know the back end payment solutions are fairly solid. That's not a solution that we felt we needed to build, frankly. It was one where we felt, as long as we own the customer experience and own the interaction with the client, and we're building on our brand and capabilities, relying on someone else's back end to execute suit us perfectly.
Yeah, and as I said, we talked about this before, and I think we're seeing so many examples of this. And obviously, this is great for us because it's exactly where we play in terms of being that kind of that best in breed, that infrastructure player, and helping make you guys successful by owning that customer relationship, which is what you guys do. You have that brand equity, and if we can bring expertise into kind of those back end services, then that's great. And you're seeing it across different segments. You're seeing it across kind of lending, in terms of wealth tech. A lot of these people are saying, listen, this is my expertise, but actually my customer, and it's driven by customer demand, and it's driven by the pains that the customer have going to traditional means to, in our instance, send cross-border payments. Whereas if you can just kind of bring that in-house, because as customers, we want to...
And you can give them, it's not just that they're see this consolidated relationship, the service we're offering, we're really looking to work with partners where the onboarding experience is simplified. They could get to the service in a simplified way, et cetera, and that for us is always this really important part of rolling out a new service, because so much of what we do, our history is, and our strength is building these kind of digital demand funnels, if you will, right? Yeah. So reaching out to a very wide audience, offering them what's frankly kind of a freemium experience, right? So here's all our data, you can get at it. Oh, would you like to pay for some aspects of it? Would you like to get a richer experience? Here's some further services, and how can we widen out those premium building blocks over the basic free data that we provide?
Yeah. So I'm interested in the timing, and not just because you finally agreed to this second date, but so we've been speaking for a while, and I guess has any of your decision been swayed by, I guess, a move to digital over the last kind of 12 months during this pandemic? And we've seen, especially I think in the neobanking world, a lot of those companies have done really well because people have moved away from kind of traditional analog processes and moved into kind of a digital world. And actually now what you guys are doing is you're consuming another kind of another product for your customers in a digital way. But have you seen any kind of change over the last year? It's
interesting. I wouldn't really say that this was not a COVID driven decision. Right. Our desire to broaden out services to this audience was there from the day I walked into OANDA, which was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Going into the first phase of the pandemic, we were pretty concerned about the resiliency of our corporate client base. Were we going to lose clients? And we really didn't. Especially the market data side, the volatility in the market brought a lot of clients to the realization that they needed better access to data, more trusted partners, and more reliable information and services. So, we've had a very good, obviously, on the retail trading side, all the volatility has led to huge interest in even in new demographics for the retail trading side. But on the corporate services side, we've seen really solid growth as through COVID, despite the concerns, we had going in that, like, are people going to drop these services to save money or whatever. But the relationship and the decision to offer this service definitely predates COVID.
Okay. And then I guess one of the points that we briefly covered earlier, but in terms of OANDA's reach is global. You said regulated in 8 or 9 jurisdictions. You're trialing this product,
but not for this service.
Not for this service, yeah. Not for this service.
Yeah. So one interesting thing for us is we're a very heavily and it was really important going into this, is we're a very heavily regulated firm, right? We have a very strong regulator in North America, in the US, and a strong regulator in Canada. And it was very important for us to be able to say, like, okay, here's what we're regulated for, as a brokerage firm. This is in a separate entity that is working with these regulated partners. And we're able to go to the NFA and say, you have a very clear picture of what we're doing and what our regulated partners are doing. And that was, as everybody on the Currency Cloud side of this relationship knows, is basically what I went to every conversation starting with. Like, this is how this has got to work. We are very heavily regulated. We are not coming to you because we're not regulated. We're coming to you because we are very regulated. And we need to make this extremely clear to our regulators, what services we're providing, what services you're providing, and that, everyone has the appropriate regulation, and these are not getting blended. I think I probably drove the Currency Cloud guys crazy in the early parts of this with the questions I had there. But with us, that was so key, as you can imagine.
I think it's key on a number of levels. I think it's obviously key from the OANDA level of the other part of your business, the other regulated part of your business for that particular service. Obviously for your customers as well, to help them understand this. I'm being provided a regulated service. Who's doing that? Full transparency. We're working with providers who are regulated properly in the right jurisdictions, because this is around moving money. This is their money. This is really important stuff. And I think it's going to be more. I think this is going to be more and more in the limelight in 2021. I think it's become really interesting. But as we see a shift in I guess the distribution of cross-border payments, and by that I mean traditionally you've had banks, money services businesses regulated for that activity are the ones who are providing that service. You've then got these kind of 2 new, I guess, verticals coming in, where you have on the far end you have completely unregulated firms. You might have software firms, accounts payable, accounts receivable, have never been involved in the flow of funds, don't need to be regulated for what they provide, which is one challenge. But I think in the middle, which is, I guess, where you guys sit and where some of the lend tech and wealth tech guys sit, is they provide a heavily regulated service already. So they've got to be super careful and super clear to their current regulators, to their customers, around who is providing, who's regulating what service. And make sure that the partnerships that they strike up, which is where you came in and the conversations that you had in the early days of, we need to be super clear about this, and we need to make sure we do it properly.
Yeah.
I just think that's going to be more and more important, because
you're right, and it's going to be a challenge to multiple regulators, especially given the regulation, the kind of parallel access to the same regulation that a lot of crypto firms are developing, right? So as the crypto firms also become MTLs, what does the regulator think about that? And how do these, does that access to the same regulation, but for a completely different use, cloud the picture? And for firms who are, corporates who are using our combined service to make these payments, they want to make sure that they're working with someone who understands that regulation for the purpose that it was intended for, for making cross-border payments, and not for buying Bitcoin in Alabama,
Yeah,
so,
And the regulatory piece is even more interesting in I guess, in our case, in the fact that we're launching this in North America, and that's got its own challenges in terms of state-by-state regulation.
Yeah.
You then start thinking about, okay, so how could I launch this in Europe? Oh, by the way, it's now Europe and the UK. How do I launch this in Singapore, in other APAC countries? So lots to think about over the next kind of year or two. But for you guys, so what else does 21 hold for OANDA? Is this a case of now let's roll this product out, let's get it to market, make it work? But obviously you've got other initiatives, as you said, on the other side of the business.
Well, there's many initiatives on the other side of the business, on the trading side of the business, on the foreign exchange trading side of the business. Within corporate services, where as I kind of mentioned, we're looking at how do we broaden our data services into more analytics and more kind of customer-facing analytic tools for the clients to provide kind of three legs to this corporate services tool, where you have the data, payments, and then some tooling that you make available that makes use of the payments or makes use of the data and analyzes the payments. And there's kind of different audience. I mean, it's corporate, but there's different audiences among the very broad brush corporate audience for that, because it's very dependent on the type of analytics you offer vary a great deal depending on the size and scope of the foreign exchange business that a given corporate does. So we're still looking at that and looking at how we might service that with tools built on our 25 years of data and kind of algorithmic expertise in the foreign exchange markets.
Listen, we're super excited about the partnership, and I know you guys are too. Glad we got to this stage, and excited for what happens.
I mean, it was a bit of a running joke that the negotiations took 3 times as long as the implementation.
Exactly. But it's a great time to launch, and I think now it's such an exciting time in this space for this type of partnership, and you're going to see lots more of this stuff. So where can people find out more about you or about OANDA? Is it oanda.com? Is that?
So oanda.com. It's not super complicated. oanda.com, corporate payments. Sign up. Give it a try, man.
Great to have you, Lucian, and thanks for coming on the show.
All right, thanks for your time. Thanks for having me on. Take care, man.
Currency Cloud is an online payments company that makes international money transfers fast and simple for businesses. We're building a borderless future where international transactions are seamless for a better user experience. Discover the world's most trusted payment platform and our toolkit of developer-friendly APIs at currencycloud.com.
You've been listening to the Payments Innovation Podcast. To ensure that you never miss an episode, subscribe now in iTunes or your favorite podcast player. Thanks for listening. Until next time.